President Obama today called the shooting down of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 an unspeakable outrage. So who are these separatists believed responsible for the loss of so many lives? New evidence is shedding light on the men behind one of the worst attacks in airliner history and how they pulled it off. Here's ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross.
Until they were accused of the atrocity that took 298 lives, the pro-Russian rebels in Ukraine had portrayed themselves as heroes. They put up movie-like billboards promoting their cause. And photographers and reporters were invited to this recent wedding of one of the wounded fighters, whose bride also wore a gun over her shoulder. And among the honored guests was their top military commander, a Russian, not a Ukrainian, who now uses the name Igor Strelkov, which means Igor the Rifleman.
We know that he has a long-standing relationship with the Russian intelligence services, a strong Russian loyalist with ties to the Putin regime in Moscow.
Strelkov says he is fighting so people in Ukraine who want to be Russian or independent can do so. But under Strelkov's command, the separatist militia fighting in Ukraine has become known as a ruthless gang of egotistical thugs, well-armed and trained by the Russians, according to U.S. intelligence officials.
At the core of the Ukrainian separatist movement are people who are not Ukrainians. They are Russians, they're soldiers of fortune, Rambo types. They like to fight, they like to kill, and they are usually rewarded for that very well by the Russian government.
Friday, as Strelkov's rebels patrolled the crash site, they and Russia denied U.S. reports they were responsible for shooting down the Malaysian air jetliner.
Here is what we know.
But the evidence gathered by the U.S. continues to mount against them, presented in its fullest form Friday by the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power.
Separatists were spotted hours before the incident with an SA-11 system at a location close to the site where the plane came down.
At the same time today, Ukraine released this footage. It says shows the actual Russian-made SA-11 missile launcher that brought down the plane near the scene right before the strike. U.S. officials believe the rebels shot down a cargo plane earlier in the week, but hit the wrong plane on Thursday because they did not fully understand how to use the SA-11 system.
They made a mistake and shot down what they thought was another Ukrainian cargo plane.
According to phone calls intercepted by Ukraine, a separatist militant first reported a plane had been shot down. Are there any weapons? The person asks. Nothing at all. Civilian belongings, medical scraps, towels, toilet paper. Told that the wreckage made clear it was a Malaysian airliner, another person answers, well, then it was bringing spies. Why were they flying? There's a war going on. In fact, that's a question many are asking now in the wake of the tragic incident Thursday. At the time, passenger aircraft were permitted to fly over the combat zone in Ukraine as long as they were above 32,000 feet. Among the dozens of airlines that overflew the area in the last week, United Airlines, Lufthansa, Virgin, KLM, and Singapore Airlines, even after a number of military aircraft had been shot down by the rebels. All those airlines have stopped flying over the area now.
Everyone associated with commercial aviation is taking a look not just at the Ukraine, but at Iraq, Afghanistan, any area where there's hostilities, and saying, is our idea that we could fly above hostilities and be safe, is that accurate?
Aviation experts say if no-fly zones were declared in all of the world's hotspots, air traffic into and through the Mideast and Southwest Asia would become very difficult.
As all of these airlines try and reshuffle their routes and try and avoid, areas of conflict, that may very well add distance to flights, which means burning more fuel, which means more cost.
And other than Air Force One, few passenger jets are equipped with anti-missile systems.
Aircraft, of course, are not only vulnerable to attack from within the plane, but also from the ground.
A report on Nightline 10 years ago featured a newly designed system that could detect and deflect some less sophisticated missiles. But the cost then was calculated at more than $1 million a plane to install, and even at that price, it was hardly foolproof. So, commercial aircraft today essentially fly unarmed, naked, against a threat that was considered highly unlikely until this week. Officials in the U.S. and Ukraine say the best defense is to bring to justice those responsible for shooting down Malaysia Air Flight 17.
I would say that this is a very, very, very outrageous crime, and all those who committed that crime should be brought to justice.
But that may be difficult. There are already indications a cover-up could be underway. International investigators were kept from the accident scene, and today, Ukraine officials released this video showing what they said was a surface-to-air missile system in the same area as the crash being returned to Russia, with only 2 of its 4 missiles still on board. And no one seems sure tonight about the whereabouts of the jet's black box, which the U.S. has demanded remain at the site, but which the rebels say they will send to Moscow. Ukraine officials say the cover-up by the rebels and the Russians is already underway, Rebecca.
So many people wanting answers tonight. Brian Ross, thank you.